Okay, good. Speed on B.
Take two, Mark.
Good. Thank you.
So Jim, in your own words, I can only try to imagine the years of solitude. For you to be able to stand on the edge of the ocean this morning and look out over that freedom and that body of water that represents Navy and the world, can you tell me in your own words what that means to you?
It's just a wonderful experience to look out into God's wonderful world and recognize that I am a free man to go and do whatever I want, and particularly enjoy all the benefits that I enjoy in this country as a free American citizen in what I consider the greatest country on the earth. And I am so pleased to have been so fortunate to have been born in the United States and lived during those hectic years of the 20th century. I really enjoy life as it is. The birds, the trees, the ocean, the sun, the sky, the clouds, the jet noise of freedom from Oceana.
Beautiful.
Perfect.
In fact, while we're here, because we had so much background traffic when we said that at Oceana yesterday, could you say that line again? We're here at Oceana, what the sounds you hear is, that would be wonderful to get that clean in here.
We can do that.
You ready, Kat? Okay.
We're here at the Naval Air Station Oceana, the Navy's jet master base on the East Coast. And the wonderful noise that's in the background is jet noise, the sound of freedom for all of us.
And now you're in your home. Can you say, I live only, whatever it is that you say,
2 months.
2 miles?
I live approximately 2 miles from the end of runway 34. So as I watch the planes take off on 34 today, it brought a lot of joy to me. I remember taking off from 34 back in the late 50s and early 60s, and the area I live in at that time was all farmland.
And now, could you talk about when you, one other connection, if you could make with the ocean behind you, because you're the only former POW that we've filmed in front of the ocean. And
Right.
the ocean is the pathway of the Navy all over
Oh,
the world.
right.
So if you could tie in that, the Navy and the ocean, that would be great.
Of course, when I look out on the horizon from Virginia Beach, the first thing I focus on is the former Air Force tracking tower that was manned for many years electronically for air defense.
Hold on 1 second, Jim. If you could put the paper down, because I'm hearing it on the microphone. There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
Hold on.
Let me start again.
Okay. Go ahead.
As I look out and see that marker, I remember seeing it so many times, leaving on the carriers from Norfolk, coming back from my 5 med cruises in my career, coming back from the Bay of Pigs where they didn't use us, coming back from the Cuban Missile Crisis where we were within seconds of launch, brings me back in memory. The ocean brings us all back to me, my career. I loved the ocean. I loved the Navy. I loved flying from a carrier. It was a thrilling experience. And I really reminisce all those things when I'm alone, looking out on the horizon as we did this morning.
Beautiful. The only thing, could you say, because I'm going to use that, I mean, you're such a poet. I'm going to use that line while you're standing at the ocean. So instead of referring to it in past tense, say, when I look out over this horizon and this ocean.
All right. When I look out over this horizon and this ocean, it brings back years of memories of going to sea on the carrier, passing the marker out there at 12 miles, saying goodbye to the United States and my family on my 5 med cruises, on the Bear Big cruise, which they didn't use us, the Cuban Missile Crisis, where we came within seconds of launch, brings back my entire career in front of me.
Beautiful, Jim. Just, you're extraordinary. And what else do you want to cover? Oh, so that I have a little bit about you joined the Navy at 17. Can you tell
Yes.
us just a little bit about that history?
I was 17, a senior in high school, and I knew that at 18 I would be in the military someplace. I wanted to fly for the Navy, and the Navy arrived at my high school in October and tested people who wanted to get into the V5 program, the Naval Aviation Cadet Program. I successfully passed that test and later on passed the physical and actually was sworn into the Navy in Boston on the 9th of February 1944 while I was still a senior in high school. I didn't get my wings until after the war, and I always sort of regretted that, but I was able to make naval aviation my career eventually. It was a non-standard career, but I and really enjoyed the flying. I was very fortunate to have mostly flying jobs. When I retired, I had more than 5,000 single-engine hours in naval aircraft, about 600 naval carrier landings, 100 and something of them prop landings on the straight deck, the rest are jet landings on the angle deck.
That's great, Jim. Now, if you would, describe what you are, and can you still get the manuscript? Are you high enough? I'm going to have him talk about what he's doing here in his book. So if you could, tell me a little bit about this manuscript in front of you and what it means and what we're looking at.
Well, I'm proofreading the original manuscript that was typed out by my wife as we told her my story of Vietnam. I wrote every word. My wife typed every word. She was the publisher, so this story is Jim Mulligan's Hanoi experience. And I tried to make it as straightforward as I could. I think I lose on every page except the last page when I come home. A free man with my head held high because I knew who I was, what I believed in, and I felt that the Hanoi experience was a major growth experience for me as I returned happily to my family and to a free society.
And talk about the actual manuscript. Is it handwritten? What is it?
It was originally handwritten on yellow pads, and then my wife typed everything up, and it's in this is the original that I made my final proof on before it went into the publication. It was a very strenuous experience psychologically. I had to really relive the experience as close as I could to make it as accurate as possible. But I think it was well worth the effort.
And you could, if you could, sir, just tell the experience of coming home and finding your wife typing your words.
I had a business and I was very busy doing a lot of things. And while I had written this manuscript on the yellow pads, and one day I just finished and gave it to Louise and didn't think about it. And I came home one afternoon about 4:30 and I opened the door and she was at her desk with a typewriter and she was typing this proof I have from the yellow pads. And she was crying like a baby. And I walked in and I recognized the emotional experience I had put my wife through. I just couldn't believe what I had done. And I said to myself, what have I done to my wife? I hadn't even thought about the fact that she would relive this experience and react so humanly when you read what has happened to someone you love and you see all the hurts they have, which are on these pages.
Beautiful, Jim. Beautiful. Such a poet. What other lines do we have?
Carrie?
Gary, have I missed anything?
You talked about, you also wanted to
Marrying the Navy.
talk about Louise.
Marrying the Navy.
Oh, yeah, you said at one point you're a military man, and your wife, when she married you, married...
The Navy.
Exactly. So if you, in your own words, could say something to that.
Yes, Louise was,
And if you would now set the page down so it doesn't make sound when you're talking.
right,
There you go.
okay. Louise and I were deeply in love. We came out of the throes of the Depression in Lawrence, Massachusetts in the 30s and 40s. And the Navy was my way to escape that environment. And when I proposed to Louise, I said to her, remember, if you marry me, you marry the Navy. And she agreed to that. And we never wavered. It was a more difficult challenge than we thought, because suddenly, as a reserve officer, I was literally thrown out of the Navy in 1949, and I had to go through many years before I was able to meet the Navy's requirements with a college education, and before I could apply for regular. I didn't make regular Navy until I was back in active duty in 1958 at Pensacola. I had come back for 2 years of Korea and then went back to college. And when I graduated, I had a wife, 4 sons, a degree, $9 in the bank, and no debts, and came back to active duty at Pensacola, where I was a flight instructor. That resumed my naval career. Fortunately, except for probably 24 months, my entire naval career was in flying status. So therefore, I was privileged to have a career that allowed me to get more than 5,000 single engine hours in the Navy.
Beautiful, Jim. Beautiful. Any other lines we can remember, guys?
Any tap code lines that you wanted to refer to?
Tap code lines. We'll get that when we're doing the tap code, I guess.
You want?
Yeah, we'll we'll do that. Actually, we could maybe do it with the table instead of the board, but we'll see.
Anything you
Still
wanted to
rolling.
comment on from the flight line or
From what?
the flight line?
Oh yeah. Let's do a little bit that. You stood on the edge of the flight line yesterday, and
On the edge of the runway you're talking about?
Yes.
All right. Never done that before.
I've never done it before either.
Not many people have.
I looked at the footage last night, and the first one that went by just blew your hat off, so we thought everything was okay. The second one that went by blew us all. They
Yeah.
came in much closer.
He was a little closer to us, yeah.
It was. But just talk a little bit about looking at that modern power of the aircraft and you as a pilot watching that happen. If you can, just whatever comes to mind.
No, looking down at the F-18, ready to take off, and we're 1,500 feet or so down the runway. I saw him add the power and heard the noise as it started. And of course, he cut in the afterburner, which is a tremendous sound. And his acceleration far exceeded what I expected. Was really at almost flying speed by the time he went by. The noise was horrendous. And of course, after the aircraft passed us, about 3 or 4 seconds later, the jet wash from the afterburner hit us, blew my head off, and almost blew me off my feet. I had never, ever experienced a Navy aircraft taking off from standing on the runway watching it. It was a tremendous experience. We don't have that on the carriers because you're either in the airplane as a pilot or you're in the ready room or someplace else, but you're not on the flight deck. So it was a real new experience to me.
Beautiful, Jim. I hope it's a good memory.
It is, really.
Great. I think we got it covered. What do you think?